flat earth shit is just
It's real easy. I mean,
easy, ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. I mean, dude, it is absolutely a psyop. What's up, Truth Community? Truth Warriors back at you. Today we decided to tackle the flat earth. A couple things we want to say first is there are 1,001 other things we could be talking about today other than the flat earth, but considering we're just starting out on YouTube, we want to do something easy and fun, and we decided the flat earth movement was about the funniest conspiracy theory circulating right now. Secondly, always do your own research. Don't take our word for it or anyone else's word for it for that matter. There are plenty of ways to check the size and shape of Earth yourself, and we're going to give you a few of those today. The internet seems to love top 10 videos, so we're going to give you our top 10 proofs that the Earth is not flat, but is in fact an oblate spheroid which turns on its own axis and orbits the Sun.
Number 10. Lunar eclipse. The phenomenon of a lunar eclipse occurs when the moon passes behind and into Earth's shadow. A lunar eclipse can be viewed from anywhere on the night side of Earth, unlike a solar eclipse which can only be viewed from a specific part of the globe. The phenomenon of a total lunar eclipse occurs when the moon passes behind and into Earth's shadow. During this event, you can clearly see the curved shadow cast by Earth move across the face of the moon. This is a major indicator of the spherical shape of the Earth.
Number 9. The Sun rises over the horizon. According to flat earth theorists, not only is the Earth flat and stationary, but the Sun is much closer and much smaller than we've been led to believe. They claim the Sun and Moon are roughly the same size and are somewhere between 30 and 100 miles overhead, depending on who you're listening to at the time. Apparently lamp-like in nature and transiting somewhere near the perimeter of the plate-shaped and stationary Earth, the Sun and Moon are in perpetual motion, one following the other. These circuits around stationary Earth apparently apply to all the rest of the planets in the solar system as well. All of this might sound semi-reasonable if not for the fact that it contradicts the easily observable fact that the Sun rises over the horizon, keeping the same size but changing only in position. Whereas in the flat Earth model, we would expect to see the Sun and Moon growing larger as they approach and smaller as they move away. We should never see any vertical movement of the Sun or Moon whatsoever, but this is exactly what we see.
Everywhere, freaks and herrings, dykes and fairies, tell me where it's empty. Tax the rich, feed the poor, till there are rich no more.
Number 8. The Cavendish experiment. Another major staple of the flat earth movement is the non-belief in gravity, their claim being that the effects of gravity can be explained with density and buoyancy. In reality, gravity, density, and buoyancy are separate but related factors that contribute to the qualities of a substance that has mass in any given medium. These effects will change according to the medium. A good example is in the vacuum of space. In order to get this straight, let's define what we're talking about. Buoyancy is the upward force, ability, or tendency for an object to float in water, air, or some other medium. The density of an object is determined by dividing the mass of the object by its volume. Gravity is the force exerted by an object which has mass on any other object that has mass. The sun and moon exert mutual gravitational pulls on each other, the moon causing the ocean's tides while still being trapped in the much more massive Earth's gravity. This force can be easily demonstrated with the Cavendish experiment.
On each end of the bar, we put a lead ball. The two balls balance and the bar is free to turn. Now we put another ball on the left side of each of the two original ones. If everything attracts everything else, the balls should attract each other and the bar should move. There is an attraction of gravity between the lead balls. First, we weigh a small lead pyramid to measure the force of attraction between it and the Earth. Its weight is 152.166 grams. Now we move the heavy lead ball under the scale, adding its mass to the mass of the Earth. The weight has increased by 1/1000th of a gram, which represents the attraction between the pyramid and the ball. When the mass under the pyramid got bigger, the force of attraction did too.
Number 7. Ships disappearing over the horizon. One of the most hotly debated topics in the flat earth community is footage of ships disappearing over the horizon. This phenomenon has supposedly been debunked by the flat earth movement, their claim being that simply by zooming in on an object that seems to be disappearing over the horizon, you can bring it back into view in its entirety. The problem with these debunking videos, which are invariably shot with the flat earther's camera of choice, the Nikon P900, is that they are misleading in the fact that what they actually show is a ship that is approaching the horizon, but that hasn't actually reached it yet, without zoom, so that the ship is barely visible and may appear to be on the horizon. Then they will zoom in on the generally small boat, bringing it back into view. What this actually demonstrates is the vanishing point from our perspective without using some kind of mechanical assistance. These videos will always include, however, a view of the actual horizon, which lies some distance behind the subject of the video. Footage that actually shows this phenomenon happening is almost always that of a very large tanker-type vessel or a cruise ship. In the real videos, it is clear that no amount of zoom would bring these ships back into focus.
Number 6. Water always finds its level. Another common misconception of the flat earth community is the idea that because water will always find its level, and from the perspective of an observer on a beach the ocean looks flat, it stands to reason the whole earth must be flat as well. Paired with this is normally the assertion that if Earth were actually a spinning sphere, all of the oceans would fly off into space. The first problem with this is that flat earthers fail to draw the distinction between straight and level. Level is defined as perpendicular to the pull of gravity. A plumb bob used correctly is exactly in line with the pull of gravity. The word straight means without a bend or curve. Believe it or not, when water finds its level, it does not form a straight line. Because Earth is curved and gravity pulls in from all directions, bodies of water will always have a curve to them, however slight. Based on the area the water takes up, that curve may be indistinguishable from a straight line. The second part of this argument can be explained by gravity yet again. Gravity is strong enough to keep the oceans on the Earth. In fact, gravity is the reason Earth and all other bodies in space hold their spherical shapes to begin with.
Number 5. The horizon is always flat and eye level. One of the easiest to disprove assertions of the flat Earth movement is that the horizon is always flat and will stay at eye level. The claim the horizon stays at eye level comes with absolutely no substantiating evidence whatsoever. The videos which supposedly show this phenomenon never seem to use any form of actual measurement. They generally consist of a man on a beach shooting footage of the ocean with what else but his Nikon P900 and making these wild and baseless claims. An analysis of all these videos using simple geometry reveals the horizon does not always stay eye level, but does in fact change relative to the perspective of the observer. In the words of Christopher Hitchens, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, and that certainly applies here. On the other hand, the logical assertion the horizon will always appear flat to an observer at or near sea level is true, yet this does not contradict the spherical Earth. This forced perspective is due to the massive scale of the Earth and relatively tiny scale of the observer. The small surface area the observer can view will always have a slight curvature, albeit a nearly imperceptible one. Imagine placing a dime on a large beach ball. The dime at its center represents an observer. The edge of the dime is the limits of the line of sight. For all intents and purposes, the dime rests on a flat surface, and the horizons would appear flat to an observer. In truth, this is a less than accurate comparison, as the difference in scale between Earth and human is many times greater than that between dime and beach ball. If Earth were a flat and level surface, it would logically follow that by using telescopics, Hawaii should be visible from California, and Mount Everest should be visible from any point on Earth's surface. This is not the case.
Number 4. You cannot feel the motion of the Earth. Another common theme of flat Earth arguments centers around the fact you cannot feel the Earth moving under your feet. They claim if the Earth were spinning upon its axis at nearly 1,000 miles per hour, they should be able to feel it, or at least be able to feel the wind whipping by them as they hurtle through space. This idea makes no logical sense, however, as anyone who's ever flown in an airplane or even ridden in a car can attest. When you are inside the cabin of a moving airplane, you cannot feel the movement, although it is likely moving hundreds of miles an hour. You can easily get up, walk around, go to the restroom, maybe even join the Mile High Club with that flirty flight attendant, all without having gale force winds blowing you over. This really is the long and short of this argument. Being on the surface of the Earth and within its atmosphere, it is impossible to feel the motion. If Earth accelerated or decelerated, it would be quite noticeable and likely very disastrous, but you would feel it. Motion itself is not perceivable as long as it remains constant, which the rotation and orbit of the Earth absolutely do.
Number 3. History. According to flat Earth theorists, up until more modern times, everyone believed the Earth was flat. This idea itself is a myth. During the early Middle Ages, virtually all scholars maintained the spherical viewpoint, which was first expressed by the ancient Greeks. From about the 14th century on, belief in a flat Earth among educated Europeans was almost non-existent. Depictions of a flat or disc-shaped Earth did appear in works of art from time to time, however. such as the Flammarion engraving, which depicts a flat earth and opaque sky or firmament. This engraving is commonly used by flat earthers to represent a supposedly medieval cosmology, but can be, in my opinion, interpreted more accurately as representing a commentary on the occult or the scientific and mystical quest for knowledge. According to Stephen Jay Gould, there never was a period of flat earth darkness among scholars, regardless of how the public at large conceptualized the earth. In other words, nobody believed the earth was flat, and if they did, it was exactly that, a belief, having no evidence whatsoever to support it. The ancient Greek philosopher Pythagoras is sometimes credited with originating the idea of a spherical earth. However, this ignores the fact that accurate depictions of the solar system can be found as far back as 2500 BC on ancient Sumerian clay tablets. Curiously, they also correctly portray the solar system in its entirety, including Pluto, which wasn't known to Western science until 1930. Also pictured was a mysterious 12th planet, which has seemingly only been detected by scientists in recent times. Lurking somewhere on the outer reaches of the solar system is the body sometimes referred to as Planet X or Nibiru, but no one can say for certain what it actually is, and this is a subject for an episode in and of itself. Today we are simply trying to show there is no reason now, nor has there ever been a reason to believe the Earth is flat. Number 2. Flight plans. There are some disputes over evidence even within the flat Earth community. One thing they all seem to agree on, however, is the flat Earth map, and they've adopted the flag of the United Nations for this purpose. The map pictured on the UN flag is a polar map and is technically known as an azimuthal equidistant projection. This is one of many ways of representing a three-dimensional surface onto a two-dimensional one. No matter how it's done, something will always get lost in translation. In the case of the UN flag, the lines of longitude stay accurate. All points on the map are proportionately correct distances and in the correct direction from the center point. Distances and directions between any other 2 points will be incorrect. Shapes and areas such as countries are skewed and become more distorted, radiating outwards from the center. The UN flag cannot be and was not intended to be used for navigation, a fact which is consistently ignored by the Flat Earth movement. It is possible to fly from Santiago, Chile to Sydney, Australia with no stops. FlightAware or any other flight tracker shows the flight curves down towards Antarctica, then back up to Australia. Shown on Google Earth, you can clearly see why this works and why it's the most direct path. If the map on the UN flag was an accurate representation of Earth, a flight from Santiago to Sydney would travel directly over North America, and this flight does not, in reality, fly over North America. Another part of this is the argument that if the Earth were spinning 1,000 miles an hour on its axis, planes should travel faster when moving in the same direction as Earth's rotation. In essence, what they think is that when a helicopter hovers straight up off the ground, it should remain stationary while the Earth continues to rotate beneath it. As we all know, this is in conflict with objective reality. Airplanes fly through air and require air to achieve thrust and lift. The atmosphere rotates with the Earth due to friction and gravity. The atmosphere is held to Earth by gravity and is evidenced by the fact that atmospheric pressure decreases with increased altitude. This effect is so consistent that the altimeter on an airplane operates by reading the atmospheric pressure alone. Atmospheric pressure is simply air molecules pushing down on other air molecules due to gravity. If Earth were a flat, domed surface, what is the reason for this? In order for flat Earth theory to be taken seriously, it not only needs to be able to explain these things, it needs to be able to explain them better than the round Earth model, which it does not. Number 1. The conspiracy theory itself. Probably the most outrageous theory heralded by the Flat Earth movement is the idea that there is a concerted global conspiracy orchestrated by governments and private interests alike working together to pull the proverbial wool over the eyes of the masses by convincing everyone the Earth is moving and spherical. The actual reasons why they would undertake this gargantuan and logistically nightmarish effort are not readily apparent. If you have an idea, let us know in the comments section. They also tend to obfuscate the glaring problem of the massive scale on which this operation would need to be executed. It would require the tandem efforts of multinational governments and private interests working seamlessly together to pull it off, and that isn't something governments do well. The number of people that would have to have some knowledge of the conspiracy would easily be in the tens of thousands. Statistically, there would be a few whistleblowers with some concrete evidence. The GPS market worldwide was estimated at $37.9 billion in 2017. There are millions of people using GPS devices worldwide at any given time. These systems rely on accurate, real-time information fed to them from satellites operating on various orbital trajectories. The science and mathematics required to design, create, and operate these systems is readily available for anyone who is interested to access and study. It's not as if this technology is kept top secret. It seems too widespread, like all out of the clear blue.
Just out of nowhere.
Right, like one day people were just like the Earth's flat, like a whole bunch of them, and they all had documentaries on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like what the fuck? And what's crazy about it is, right, is that this is even how you know too, is that most of them, or not, I can't say most of them, but some of them, if you actually watch their videos, they know enough of the science and enough of the way it like actually is to spin it and make it seem like it's something else. You know what I mean? But they actually have clearly done a bunch of research into this stuff, because if they didn't, they wouldn't know the stuff that they're saying. It's just they're using it as trying to show you something. But see, they would have to know that the Earth is actually round. To know the shit that
It's a trick.
It's a fucking psyop.